Oh no, this one. This one. Oh! Just trying to pick up my hat for today. Hello everyone! It's Monday, December 1st, 2008, and this is WFTL Bytes, your occasiodaily FOSS and Linux news show with your host, me, Marcel Gagné. You can see me here, whenever it happens, at WFTL Bytes.com. Hey, I'm going to lead off the top. Well, actually, first I need my press hat. I think I'll go with this one today. There we go. I'm going to lead off the top with a story from Linux Magazine, and this one actually gets the award for best title, or at least the most grabby title, and it's Microsoft Cuddles Up to Open Source. Microsoft getting all cuddly with open source. Can you imagine it? Here's what happens. It's an interesting article that paints a picture of a seemingly totally transparent, wide-open Microsoft providing access to its APIs via thousands and thousands of white papers, embracing PHP in its code, all sorts of things like that, eschewing transparency. It just sounds so wonderful. They even talk about the OXML shambles, and they go on to point out that Microsoft Office 2007 Service Pack 2 will have support for ODF 1.1. Now, Microsoft wants you to think that they're doing all this stuff out of the goodness of their heart because they understand and appreciate open source and all that stuff, and you almost fall for it. Except for the fact that a lot of what they're doing has to do with a European Union lawsuit that found them guilty of anti-competitive practices and a bunch of other things like that, and ordered them to pay $1.6 billion in cash. They actually wound up paying just under $900 million in cash, but it's to comply with this whole lawsuit. So, yes, Microsoft is a little bit more open, but does Microsoft really want to be open? You check it out, the article. Remember, all the links are at the bottom below this video, and you can find out what you think on this. Hey, over at Information Week, there's an article titled, What's Wrong with Linux and How to Fix It? Well, apparently, I'll jump right to the end of the article where it says, what's wrong with Linux is obviously not fatal, otherwise Linux wouldn't have gotten to where it is today. But the author goes on to talk about all sorts of things. All the differences between distributions, the different types of package management systems, binary compatibility problems, drivers, differences in GUI design, and he's not even talking about the whole KDE GNOME thing and so forth, and puts forth a whole bunch of ideas about, what could be done, how Linux could be rethought somewhat without, throwing out the whole baby bathwater thing. And making it better, making it easier for particularly commercial vendors to embrace Linux and provide their products to Linux. So it's interesting. It's worth checking out, and it's at Information Week. Hey, speaking of companies opening up, over at Computer World, let me tell you something. If you've got a notebook computer, and there are an awful lot of you out there with notebook computers, I see you over at Starbucks and other places, you probably, it's entirely probable, in fact, that you've got an Atheros, is it Atheros? Atheros? I'm going to say Atheros chipset, yes, in your wireless card. Well, Stephen J. Von Nichols points out that Atheros has decided to open up their hardware specifications, yes indeed, thereby making it easier for open source developers to create drivers for the wireless chipsets. Now, in the past, Atheros hasn't been exactly, how can I put this, forthcoming with help in creating drivers, but they're opening up, they're helping out the open source community, and I think it's a good thing. I think it's a good thing that they're doing it. I think it's a good thing whenever hardware companies open up their hardware specs so that we can write drivers. And it only makes sense to me. After all, you open up the specs, you've got a larger customer base, and you know what? The open source developer community does the work for you! I mean, it's a win-win situation. Hardware vendors get with the program. Hardware. Intel. Hey, did you know that Intel originally thought the netbooks, the little funky things? You knew I was going to get to netbooks again, didn't you? Those little netbooks originally thought of them as desktop and notebook replacements. Well, they wound up rethinking that and decided that maybe it was kids and people who just didn't want to pack up a whole computer to go out and do their thing. Well, the VP of sales over at Intel, a guy named Stu Pan, apparently has been rethinking the whole netbook thing, saying, if you've ever used a netbook and then you've used a notebook with a 10-inch screen, you find that the netbook is maybe good for an hour or something like that, And so it's not something like you're going to use on an ongoing basis. What the heck is he thinking about? What is he smoking? Think about this for a minute. You ever sat there with a cell phone and tried to type in a little message in a cell phone, or for that matter, use the BlackBerry? Let me just write you a little message in the BlackBerry. You know what? It's a pain in the butt, but it's the right device for the right place. And it makes sense for people to use these things. Well, you know what? Netbooks make sense. They're these great little lightweight things that you can take with you, hook up to your network. Remember Starbucks? Hook up to your network at Starbucks or whatever your favorite coffee place happens to be, and it does the job. You know, I just don't get this, and I don't see what the issue is. Speaking of little devices that can be really annoying to work with, namely the cell phones and so forth, first of all, I'm going to lead off by telling you that I would rather have an Android phone than what's coming up here. But OS News reports that Linux has been ported to the iPhone. Yes, indeed. Although it is actually, just the BusyBox kernel that's been ported to the iPhone. So it's only so useful at the moment. I heard about this originally, actually, not from OS News, but from a little tweet that showed up on my KDE Twitter applet on my KDE 4.1 desktop. And it was from Chris Perillo, who is, one of the net's live geeks and a guy who was actually originally on Tech TV way back when, a million years ago. Anyway, Chris decides to compare to Linux on the iPhone to the proverbial nipples on the male hog. Well, you know, Chris, I thought you were a geek, man! I mean, have you totally lost your geekness? Have you totally forgotten what it's like to just have fun with technology? I mean, the whole point, I think, of running Linux on the iPhone isn't necessarily that, hey, tomorrow we're all going to turn around and blow away the operating system on our iPhones and run Linux. I'm not entirely sure that that's the case. Sometimes you do things because it's fun, it's geeky, you want to see whether you can make it happen. That's part of what, open technology is all about, and that's why Linux and open source software is so much fun, because you can hack this stuff. You can have fun with it. Come on, Chris. You're moving over into that mainstream corporateness and so forth. You gotta re-geek yourself, dude. You know what I'm saying? All right. I think I'm done for the day. On that note, that's it. I'm done. Didn't I have a coffee around here somewhere? I didn't have a coffee today. I need coffee. No, really, I'm done. Bye.